Are you thinking about purchasing a home in Michigan and there might be an HOA, otherwise a homeowners association? If so, then you must check out this video first. This video is for those of you who are purchasing a home here in Michigan or are thinking about purchasing a home here in Michigan, in specifically an area that may or may not have an HOA or homeowners association. First off, if you don't know what a homeowners association is, then this video is also for you. Second off, if you're unsure if your home you're purchasing will have an HOA, I still recommend you check out this video. Before we get into that, I am your host, Matt Talbot. I'm the broker owner of Redefine Real Estate. I have been a real estate broker for many years and dealt with hundreds of transactions here in Southeast Michigan and throughout the state of Michigan. So I'm very, very well versed on homeowners association. That is the reason why you should definitely listen to this video. We want to deep dive into HOA, into homeowners association, specifically all the pros and cons when it comes to HOAs and homeowners associations here in Michigan. First off, what is a homeowners association, or HOA as we refer to it? Overview: HOAs manage shared amenities, enforce community standards, and maintain property values. That's such a good way to say it, so I'm reading it directly here. Common features: duals, rules, and regulations about property, appearance, and usage. Michigan's specific note: many suburban and newer developments include HOAs. Yes, that's very, very true. So most newer developments here in Southeast Michigan and really across the state, especially if you're in a subdivision, most likely have an HOA. Now, most people think HOAs are just for places with condos or bigger subdivisions or only newer subdivisions. That's not always true. There's a variety of different HOAs. Some are very, very hands-on, micromanage every single thing that you do throughout that home and throughout your own property that you own. And some are very, very hands-off. It could just be a voluntary HOA even, where there's some type of association, there's some stuff done throughout the subdivision. Sometimes you pay for it, sometimes you don't, or it's a voluntary thing where you go ahead and pay for these type of services. Through the years of selling real estate, I can't tell you how many people they say, I will absolutely not buy a house with a HOA. It's absolutely not going to happen. And for those of you out there that think that, I would be a little word to the wise, is I would reconsider. Depending on the HOA, depending on the subdivision, depending on the situation. Like I said, there's such a plethora of HOAs, and a lot of people that have bad experiences, typically they ended up with someone with a bad board, or maybe they were in a subdivision that was just a little too stringent for their needs. But an HOA in general doesn't necessarily mean that everything is controlled and you're going to have these type of issues moving forward. Many times there's a lot of pros of having an HOA, and some of the lists that we have here is community maintenance, well-kept neighborhoods, and amenities like pools and parks. That's huge. So maintenance, okay? A lot of places, if you drive through some subdivisions without HOAs or no type of rules, sometimes it ends up, for lack of a better word, really just a shit show. Like, things go south, people aren't really monitoring items, neighbors aren't really looking out for each other, and sometimes the neighborhoods can go to hell in a handbasket really fast if they're not properly managed. So that is a pro for a lot of communities, is having that community maintenance. We also mentioned pools and parks as well too. So sometimes there's shared features, there's your sign at the front of the subdivision, there's shared spaces, and making sure that those are well maintained makes them useful spaces. Number 2, property values. HOAs help maintain consistent property standards, protecting resale values. That's one of the reasons why they exist in so many new subdivisions. People are like, hey, I'm building a $500 to $700 million house, right? They want to understand $700,000 million house, right? They want to understand, hey, is there going to be some type of standards? Am I going to build this house? Am I going to move into the subdivision? And what are the standards of this subdivision? And that's really what a HOA does. It helps manage those standards. So property values, I think, is very true. I think a lot of areas hold property values with HOAs compared to places without them at times. Amenities. Access to shared facilities, which I already mentioned. Facilities like clubhouses, gyms, and playgrounds. Those are huge, right? You get additional amenities, thank you, if I can speak today, for these particular items, right? So a lot of times you're going to have a playscape, or you're going to have a neighborhood pool, or sometimes, like, there's a sub that comes to mind in one pocket of town that they have a great barn. You can actually rent out the barn. You can do events there, do birthday parties and stuff like that, and they maintain it. They keep the parking lot in good shape. They maintain everything around it, and it's a nice feature to have. It's a great amenity. Wow.
Okay. hey, don't hurt yourself.
And then last but not least, for pros of living in a place with the HOA is support systems. HOA boards address neighborhood concerns, as in landscaping and street repairs. I think that's entirely true. There is a support system, okay? So I'm actually recently purchasing a house myself. There happens to be an HOA in this subdivision. It is very, very lackluster. There's not a lot going on. It's very low dues. It's not a big controlling thing for me. However, that support system is huge. So right away, the HOA has been good with me. They gave me a lot of different resources, talked about the utilities and the different places to get internet and what they're working on as an organization, how to network within the organization. So those support systems are huge. But just like we have in our country as a whole, sometimes there's difference of opinions, right? Because this comes down to somewhat political views, right? HOAs is somewhat your neighborhood politics, right? And just like politics, you vote for people. There's a president, a treasurer, different people throughout the board that go ahead and take care of different items depending on the size of the HOA. And sometimes you get along with the ideas and sometimes you don't. But just like anything else in government, you can't complain unless you're getting involved, right? And so a lot of times I think as Americans, it's very easy for us to complain, this guy, that guy, whatever, but are you getting involved? Are you trying to do your part along the way? And that's even more important, in my opinion, at the micro level, because you're going to be directly affected by your neighbors and by that board, right? So get involved, be involved with HOAs, and there's a lot of pros of having those HOAs for purchasing a home here in Michigan. Up next is going to be the cons of HOAs here in Michigan. So before I get through the cons list, make sure you stay to the end because I have some really, really critical tips of what to expect out of HOAs and some specific tips to avoid at the end of this video. So stay to the end and make sure I haven't dropped a hit subscribe, I think in like maybe 20 videos, Mikey. What do you think? I don't think I've said it in like 20 videos. I don't say it anymore, but if you're watching this video and you follow my stuff, hit subscribe, tap for notifications, please. It's been a long time since I've said that. I just want to provide value, but I do like the followers. It helps us grow the channel. It helps us tell YouTube that we're doing good. Okay, cons of living in an HOA. Number one, and this is like the big con for a lot of people, is fees. Monthly or annual dues can range from $200 to over $1,000 depending on amenities. That's like even low. So like that's what we have for our note here. Some HOAs, so if you live in like a condo association where you have shared walls, everything's covered. Some HOAs can literally be hundreds, if not thousands or more a month at times, okay? Now some people are very, very scared about that. I'll give you an example. There's a couple buildings in downtown Detroit. They're high-rise buildings and the prices of these units are very, very, very low. And everyone's like, why are these units so low? Everything else in the area is much higher. And one of the reasons is because they work in a little bit of a more collaborative space. There's a lot of included stuff in their HOAs. Their heat's included, their air's included, their water's included, their taxes are included sometimes. Like it can all be rolled into this HOA due and into these numbers. So really, you have to pay attention to what you're paying for and what you get out of those services. So sometimes you might see a high HOA, you're like, I'm not paying for that, but then you realize like, oh, trash is included. Oh, they're actually gonna do my snow removal. They're actually gonna do lawn care. They're actually going to, include my water in that bill. And there's a community pool, right? So that would make sense that the bills are a little bit higher. So one of the biggest cons are definitely going to be fees, and people don't like to pay extra fees. One of the reasons why they don't choose to live in homes with HOAs. However, those fees, a lot of times you pay for what you get, and usually are fairly relative. They're not always completely relative. Some boards might get a little carried away and bump the fees up higher than they need to be. But for the most part, from my experience, at least here in Southeast Michigan, a lot of the fees are somewhat relative to what you get out of the situation. Again, the board is ran by the neighbors. It's ran by the neighborhood and stuff like that. So people aren't just looking to jack up the fees for no reason. They have to pay for them. However, there could be differences of opinions in there, right? Okay, next is restrictions. This could be like tied for number one. I would say number one, people either don't want to pay for it, but number two, when people are like, absolutely not, no HOAs, is restrictions. So rules about landscaping, house colors, or even parking can feel limiting, okay? And that's 100% true. Depending on how stringent the HOA is, sometimes they might say, hey, you need a specific amount of plants in your front yard. You need a very specific look. You can't change the color of the house to a certain color that you want. If you're against those types of rules, or if you want to do everything that you want and live in a 100% free world, then maybe an HOA is not for you. However, those standards do create consistency in subdivisions and can help you out. Again, flipping back to the pro a little bit there. Enforcement. Some HOAs are strict about fines, non-compliance, which can lead to frustrations. I see this one all the time. All right, if you're watching this video and you're on your HOA board, like, you guys got to like ease up a little bit, okay? Some of you guys got to ease up a little bit. Not everyone, but some of you guys got to ease up a little bit. I'll give you an example. My cousin, he's a very big Michigan State fan. He flew his Michigan State flag in the front yard, okay, of his properties. New house, new construction, whatever. Moved in, beautiful house, and the HOA guy's like, you got to take it down. Someone from his board. He's like, well, it says in the bylaws that I can fly it on game day. He's like, well, it's not game day. It's not Sunday. And my cousin, who went to Michigan State University, he was Sparty. He was literally the mascot at Michigan State University. And so for him, he followed the volleyball team and the track team and everyone else. So he's like, well, every day is game day. I don't just watch football. I kind of watch all these different sports. Anyway, long story short, the board changed the rule and made him take the flag down. Listen, that's like an extreme example for sure. So I think sometimes people need to like let up a little bit, but I do see that there's some need for control. So just like anywhere else, understanding your HOA, getting to the bottom of that can be very, very important. And once again, ding, 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 it's a great time to have a real estate agent, right? So a good real estate agent or real estate broker is going to look into this HOA for you. They're going to get you all the documents. They're going to review everything. They're going to actually get you in touch with members from the board before you go through the purchase so you can make sure you feel comfortable with that HOA. Most people don't think about it. Most people without an agent or with an agent that's not really looking out for their best interest, just go ahead and buy the house. And they don't really care to talk to the HOA. They don't really care to look into the details, look at the financials, a deep dive into that. And so very, very critical tip is to make sure you have a real estate agent that's going to do those services for you along the way. Next, conflicts, disagreements, HOA boards or neighbors over rules or dues can occur. That's what I've been saying throughout this entire video. That's definitely a major con. The board might vote on something that you don't agree with, and you got to go with that, just like the rest of the free country that we live in, right? Sometimes people vote on stuff. We don't all agree with it, but we got to live with it. That's kind of the same thing when you're agreeing to an HOA board. So understanding the master deed, the bylaws, everything that goes into that HOA board and into the decisions that could come up along the way is very, very important to you. Read those documents. Like, you should not be writing a purchase agreement here in Michigan without your HOA contingency, okay? What I mean by that is there's literally an addendum that we put onto our contract that gives us amount of time to review all the HOA documents. The financials, the bylaws, the master deed, all that stuff you get a chance to review, and your agent should take you through that and making sure that you're being critical and understanding all the nuances of living in that HOA. Number 4 on our list, what to consider before buying a home with a HOA. First and foremost, review HOA documents like I was just explaining. Understand the rules, restriction, and fees. That's what we have in our notes here, and I think that's critical. You have to understand everything that goes into these documents, okay? When you purchase something and you're given documents, read the stuff. Have someone review it with you that understands what they're looking at. Assess financial stability. Check on HOA's budget, reserves, and history due to increases. That's very, very important. If you're driving through a subdivision and the roads are horrible and you look and the HOA has no money sitting there to take care of the roads, that might be a major red flag because that could be a huge assessment for you down the road. A lot of times the HOA doesn't always roll in everything into the cost. So sometimes people are like, I want a very low HOA, which is fine until you have to pay the piper. Is that the saying, Mikey? Until you have to pay the piper, right? There's times where, okay, let's say you live in a condo complex and they're not putting enough away for the roofs, right? And people are like, I want to keep my board, my dues low. I'll keep my dues low. And then all of a sudden we all need new roofs and you get this crazy assessment. And everyone's like, how do I get this crazy assessment? Well, it's because they haven't been budgeting for that. Specifically in different areas, different pockets of town, you need to be very, very stringent. We've worked a lot in the city of Detroit and there's been a lot of development through the years, obviously a lot of changes over the last 20 years in the city of Detroit, and a lot of these places have changed very, very drastically. These are also very old buildings, sometimes historic buildings, and so understanding the cash reserves, what projects they're working on, what needs to happen, and the expenses associated could be detrimental to you when purchasing a home in a city like Detroit or really anywhere. So understanding those finances is going to be critical. Talk to residents. It's a big one. Get insights in the HOA operates and whether residents are satisfied. So again, like as agents, we don't really like get too far hardcore in this, but if you talk to a neighbor, if you want to talk to somebody, if you're doing an inspection, if you're showing, try to communicate within the community to understand what's really happening so you hear it from the devil's mouth, just not from the real estate agent or someone that represents the seller's best interest, right? Last but not least, evaluate fit for lifestyle. If you value freedom over structure, an HOA might not be the best fit. So listen, guys, like sometimes people like really want the HOA. Like a lot of our retiree clients, as an example, they want to downsize, they want to move to a condo, and maybe they have a second place in Florida. Florida, and they want everything taken care of for them. They're not doing their own snow. They don't want to do their own salt. They don't want to take care of their grass and their landscaping and their flowers and their stuff, and they want all that stuff done for them. So that's a perfect product. There's a reason why there's a variety of different home types. There's a reason why there's a variety of different HOA types, because they're specific to your needs. So understanding that, understanding the nuances, the pros and cons, the different areas, what is considered part of the HOA and what is not, is going to be critical in purchasing a house. Okay, I told you I'd save some good stuff for the end here. So a couple little hacks, a couple little tricks to consider that a lot of people don't. So a good real estate agent is asking you detailed questions on your personal situation. So I wish there was like an audience because I could like ask the questions, but like I can't really get the feedback live. Maybe we'll go live on one of these, Mikey. But okay, so there's no audience. I can't ask the question, but the question I would ask is like, what's one thing that a lot of people don't consider with an HOA that could definitely drastically affect purchasing a house or their family's needs? Okay. And let me give you a hint. A lot of times they have 4 legs, they're furry, so pets. Okay. Pets is a huge one, guys. A lot of times there's breed restrictions or there's limit restrictions as far as volume of animals that are allowed. Some HOAs don't allow any animals at all. Some just cats, some one dog, some it's unlimited. So you really need to understand what that looks like. If you have 2 Great Danes and 3 cats at the house and you want to move to a condo association with the HOA, there's a lot of, it's very unlikely the HOA is going to let all of that happen. There's going to be rules there. So that's a big one. Pets is huge. Understanding if your pet or multiple pets are allowed in the HOA is going to be huge. Then number 2, I already mentioned it earlier, but the number 1 trick that I want you guys to leave with in this video is to make sure you have an HOA addendum anytime you're buying a house with a HOA. I don't care if it's a voluntary HOA with $100 a year, understanding what's in those documents and in that specific paperwork is critical for you. A lot of agents, real estate people don't take you through this. Definitely the seller's agent doesn't do it. Definitely the builder's agent a lot of times doesn't necessarily take you through it. They'll throw it, say, hey, review this, let me know if there's any questions, but they're not diving into specifics. So have an addendum that protects you during your inspection period so you can deep dive into the specifics of HOAs. It's critical. And then actually do it. Deep dive, read the documents, understand your breed restrictions, understand what you can and can't do. Maybe you wanted to build an outbuilding, you realize you can't in that particular community. You need to understand all this stuff based on your nuanced situation. So a good real estate agent, just like always, you want to sit down and do a formal consultation before you hire anyone to work with, okay? You want to sit down and have them present their services. And if part of their services is not reviewing HOA documents, deep diving into the paperwork, and making sure that they ask you the specific questions on your unique needs, and they're going to coach you through all that, then that's not the agent for you. Find someone that's going to do this legwork for you. That's why you hire an agent here in Michigan. Okay, done rant. My name is Matt Talbot. This is the Redefined Real Estate Brokerage. This is Living in Detroit podcast. Also, feel free to check out our Redefined Real Estate podcast while I'm at it, and also Moving Motown. I have 3 channels, believe it or not. Don't ask me how I got there, but I did. There's different goals and information on each of those channels. The real estate is more specific to industry. Moving Motown is local fun stuff, and Living in Detroit is people that are going to move here to Michigan or want to move throughout Michigan and want to get coached and educated on the marketplace here in Michigan. So thank you so much for checking out this video. Check out those channels. Much love. I appreciate the love and support, and hopefully you learned something and took some good stuff from this HOA video.